This entitled mum has to be the most selfish mother on the planet. Instead of being happy for her child getting married, all she can think about is how it's going to ruin her holiday plans. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. So this story doesn't involve me too much, but I know quite a lot of evil cousin's actions and behavior through stories family members and GC told me. Ever since we were little kids, my cousin, good cousin, and I have been best buds. We lived only a few miles away from one another, so we would bike to each other's houses, play in our backyards, and play video games. Good cousin comes from an extremely wealthy family. Her dad, my uncle, started a business when he was 20, and it has been super successful to the point there are now several large locations across the globe. Even though this family is crazy rich, they live a very modest lifestyle. They live in a small 2-story home on a few acres of land, and a very large pond takes up most of it. The one lavish thing they do is that every 2 or 3 years, they go on a cruise. GC is one of 3 children. She has an older brother and her identical twin sister, EC. You may think the good twin, evil twin scenario is only seen on the TV screen, but GC and EC are the real world equivalent. GC is kind and generous, while EC selfish and entitled. EC always had this idea in her head that because her dad was so wealthy, she didn't have to lift a finger in life to get what she wanted. Good things just came to her, GC and their brother, but GC had the common sense to know that she can't always rely on daddy's money. Despite getting pretty much everything they wanted growing up, GC and her brother never had entitled attitudes. Their parents are also super nice, so EC was always the evil standout of the family. EC's attitude only got worse as time went on. Eventually, EC got married and had a kid, a boy. EC's husband is just as nasty as she is, so they were kind of made for each other. Evil cousin always wanted to rub her child in good cousin's face, like she wanted to gloat about having a kid before she did. Good cousin had a history of bad relationships. One time she came to her sister for advice after her boyfriend mistreated her. EC had the nerve to blame her weight and not using makeup to make herself more attractive. GC was afraid to date anyone after her last relationship disaster, but that changed when she finally met the man of her dreams. GH. I met GH personally, and he's a giant teddy bear of a guy. He's the perfect guy to help heal GC's old wounds and give her the loving, happy life she deserves. Then, nearly 2 years after they met, GC and GH were engaged. The entire family was thrilled that GC finally got the man of her dreams, and her father wanted to throw a boatload of money to her to help pay for a beautiful wedding. For future reference, he did the same thing for EC when she got married, yet EC was not happy about how extravagant GC's wedding was going to be. GC wanted to be married at Niagara Falls and invite basically everyone she knew, and her father was going to pay for pretty much all of it. EC was furious. She talked to GC and their father about the wedding and how all the money being spent better not interfere with the family's upcoming cruise. Yes, they still went on cruises together every few years, despite the children being grown and having families of their own. Their father said that because of the wedding and how expensive it was going to be, the family cruise would have to be pushed back another year or 2. EC practically exploded. She blamed GC for taking the cruise away from her and her precious boy, who was 5 at this point. She said she told her son how they were going on a cruise and how now he's going to be upset because his selfish aunt wanted to get married instead of giving him a happy week in the tropics. EC even had the audacity to demand GC to reschedule the wedding for next year so they could go on the cruise instead. GC, who is normally not a confrontational person, had it with her sister's attitude and told her if she wanted to go on a cruise, she would have to pay for it herself. EC and her husband were nowhere near as wealthy as their father, and there was no way he was going to reschedule his own daughter's wedding just to give EC what she wanted. EC's ranting went on for weeks, flipping back and forth between blaming her sister for ruining her son's year and begging her father for money to go on a cruise because she and her family deserved it. She drove GC to tears, and she ended up calling me up for advice. My only advice to her was to give EC, who normally gets everything, nothing. And by nothing I mean don't invite her to the wedding. Like most sisters would do, GC wanted EC to be one of the bridesmaids, as she was a bridesmaid for EC's wedding. Not inviting her would be a major upset for everyone involved, but it just may be the thing to teach EC a lesson. So she did just that. GC called up her sister and flat out told her that if she didn't change her attitude, she didn't want it leaving a sour taste at her wedding. Again, EC blew up shouting at GC, calling her all sorts of names, and again, blaming her for the cruise being cancelled. GC hung up and decided not to invite her to the wedding. The wedding was amazing, and I ended up being the bridesmaid to take EC's place. Yes, I was invited to the wedding originally, but GC didn't want me to be a bridesmaid, only because she knew I hated dresses and I'd rather wear a suit. But I said I'd wear a dress just for her special day. It's been a few years now, and GC and GH have a beautiful little girl and have a baby boy on the way. EC is still in their lives and is still nasty as ever, but she doesn't come to her father begging for anything anymore, because after her behavior towards him and GC, he threatened to leave her out of his will if she continued to pester either of them. Maybe now that she's not going to get everything handed to her on a silver platter, she'll change her attitude for the better. Or at least, that's what we all wish to happen. Imagine working so hard your entire life to provide for your family, only to have one of your children basically treating you like a big piggy bank that they can smash anytime they want cash from you. No wonder the father threatened to take her out of the will if she wouldn't chill. Because you know what's more important than money? Is having good relationships with those close by you. Treating other people how you want to be treated. And that's not what EC did in the story. This happened about 2 years ago when my daughter was in kindergarten. We were invited to one of her kindergarten friend's birthday. It was a swim party at the local YMCA. There were specific instructions on the invitation, because this was a party for 5 to 6 year olds. The parents must stay with their kids while attending. There were about 14 little kids running around the pool for this party, so to put it all on one mother and one lifeguard would have been too much. I knew some of the other mothers attending, so we all were going to have fun sitting poolside watching over the kids with birthday girl's mum. Enter entitled parent. She comes in with her son to the poolside dressed in regular clothes. She tells birthday girl's mum that she has to run a few errands and should be back in 20 minutes, before abruptly leaving her kid standing there. BG's mum didn't have time to respond before this EP was gone. EP's son was a known troublemaker in the kindergarten class and had often picked on all of our kids. The BG's mum couldn't leave the poolside while the kids swam as a part of the agreement for renting the pool, so she had to ask one of her older sons to show the EP's kid to the bathroom so he could change into his swimsuit. Meanwhile, BG's mum vented to us as she was already understandably stressed and couldn't believe what had happened. She told us that, had she just asked me before the party, we could have worked something out, but I can't believe she just expects me to have complete responsibility of her kid when I'm clearly occupied. To make matters worse, the kid had disappeared when it was time to get everyone dressed to have cake and watch the birthday girl open presents. Eventually he was found bugging people back in the bathroom. Not sure how he was bugging them. I heard that part later as I was getting my kid dried and dressed. To make matters worse, the trunks he had been swimming in were his short pants, and he had no towel. Luckily, one of the other mums brought some spare towels to dry him off and sit on at the table and chairs inside a conference room area where the rest of the party would be held. By this point, it's been an hour since EP left him. He was his usual rough self and fussing that he wanted a bigger piece of cake, even though they were all the same size. And the kids reluctantly included him in the party games. This part of the party lasted another hour. After cake was eaten, games played, presents opened, and gift bags handed out, this kid's EP was still not back. People were leaving, and the BG's mum had to deal with taking decorations and watching over her kid, who was sweet in helping her. And EP's kid, who was running around like a bat out of heck. People helped her take down the decorations and get all the stuff to her car, while others watched over over the kids. When I left, 2 hours 37 minutes into EP's disappearance, BG's mum was calling and trying to find this woman, as she and BG were tired and ready to go home. I don't know what eventually happened, but one way or another, the EP's kid got home. I noticed at the next classroom party that the things were very strained between BG's mum and EP. Wonder why? All I could remember thinking was that if this was a constant thing, that it was no wonder the kid was always getting into trouble in school. If you're not getting any attention, then I suppose any type of attention is good attention at that point. I think that final point really hits the nail on the head. There are a lot of kids who misbehave simply because they're not getting the right love, care, attention, and discipline that they should be getting at home. It's what continues the vicious cycle of entitled parent to entitled kid to choosing beggar, back to entitled parent again. So maybe just try and invest in your kids just a little bit and they won't turn out to be terrible people. I work at an animal resort. We board dogs, cats, and everything in between. I've been working there for about a month and love working with all the animals that come through. Sometimes we get ones that are super skittish or dog aggressive, and we have to take certain care with them. We also give tours to people who are thinking of boarding their animals with us that sometimes last for hours because we work in an animal resort. They have animals. We have so much in common. Sundays are reserved for pickup of animals only. We have a 2-hour window where parents can pick up their fur babies, but it costs a little bit extra. The influx of people and the lack of people working the weekends always keeps us busy, so normally we don't give tours. I was working last Sunday when reception called to ask if someone could give a tour. I was in the middle of cleaning kennels, but would gladly take a tour to take a break. I walk up, super friendly like, and there's a woman there with her 2 children who are bouncing on their heels with anticipation. I ask her all the normal questions. What size is your dog? What breed? Have you boarded with us before? Red flag number 1 is when she hesitated to tell me what kind of dog she had. Okay, weird, but it is what it is. Maybe it's a new dog. I take them back to the runs and the kid instantly let go of their mother's hand and starts going over to the runs, fiddling with the locks. Please don't do that, I requested, looking at the mother who looks like the cat who ate the canary. It's fine, she replies. I told them they can come and play with the dogs today. That's when it dawns on me. She doesn't have a dog. She wanted to come and look at dogs with her kids. Putting on my best smile, I continue to walk her through the different areas that we offer. In our most expensive area, we have cameras that allow our clients to watch their dogs during the day. They're usually full during the weekends, but this particular one, we only had one full of 2 90-pound Akitas. One being very skittish and male aggressive. They have a curtain over their run so they won't bark at the other dogs, and the son runs over and tries to undo the lock because he can't see over the curtain. Wait, don't! I snap, but it's too late. The larger of the 2 Akitas is going ballistic, jumping on the glass and basically scaring the pants off the boy. He stumbles back and starts screaming and crying for his mum. His mother rushed over, scoops up her son and turns to me. How dare you scare my son like that? She snapped angrily, the child still screaming in his mother's ear. Those dogs should be locked up. Well, in all technicalities, ma'am, they are locked up, I responded, trying not to let the sarcasm through. She narrows her eyes and turns on her heel, storming out towards the lobby. I'm going to tell your manager how poorly you're looking after these dogs, she yells right into my face. You let a 6-year-old boy almost get his face eaten off. I'm scared at this point. I don't want to get fired. I've only been here a month, and if I lost this job, it would be a nightmare. However, our receptionist comes over, tells me that it's okay. She'll call my manager and she can make a report. Dread in my heart, I go back and finish working on the kennels. Well, it turns out since the whole thing was recorded on our security cameras, they could see the woman was definitely in the wrong and requested that she did not come back unless it was in the company of an animal she wished to have boarded. The resort got a nasty review on Yelp, my name not included, thank goodness. But she hasn't come back with a dog or a cat. So this was a few months ago, on Easter. For those of you who don't know what that is, maybe overseas, it's when Christians celebrate Jesus' resurrection after being dead for 3 days, and celebrate with coloring eggs and hiding and hunting them and taking pictures with a giant rabbit. Kinda weird now that I type this out. Being from the south, it's a pretty big deal down here. Anyway, during this time, my hosting aunt decided to have the Easter celebration party or egg hunt at her house. Now my family is huge, like 100 plus people on my dad's side alone. This means that at least 50 relatives showed up at the party. This includes at least 20 to 25% of the people that showed up were children. With me being in college, I was now old enough to be put on egg hiding detail, with all of my other older cousins and the adults, including my mum, sister, my aunt, who's hosting the party, and my dad's sister-in-law. As we're outside hiding the eggs, the kids were doing activities in the garage with the remainder of the adults. Now, this part is important as it is a tradition of my family to keep the kids from knowing where the eggs are, as we hide 3 golden eggs. These are very special because they contain $5 to $20 in each of them, in which the money is donated by various family members. These eggs are specifically for the kids, so it's mutually respected that the adults don't seek them out. Until this happened, that is. After hiding the regular eggs, a mix of real and fake ones with candy, outside, we find a special place for the golden eggs. My hosting aunt's house is your typical southern one. Large yard, front and back with enough room for a grilling area, a couple of trees, a large porch, with rocking chairs, gravel driveway, even the front door has a burlap bow hanging from it. This is important as we actually hid one of the golden eggs in said bow. After all the eggs were hidden, we called all the children for the egg hunt. Time skipped to almost all the eggs being found except for the last golden egg, which had the $20. There were kids everywhere frantically searching for it, with me, my sister, my mum, and hosting aunt giving hints as each minute passed. Out then comes entitled aunt, as she quickly opens the front door and snatches the golden egg right out of the bow. Mum, sister, dad's sister, cousin 1 and 2, and hosting aunt, and pretty much everyone else outside of the time stares in disbelief. Did she really just do that? Yes, she did. But that wasn't for her. She knows. I then go inside to confront her as it was my $20 that I donated for the egg, followed by both cousins, sister, mum, and dad's sister. Entitled aunt sits there talking to another woman I didn't even know. Hey, that wasn't for you, it was for the kids. So, I am a kid, just a big one. You are not a child, EA. Yes, I am. I'm a child of God, so still counts. That's not fair, EA. It was meant for us. Yeah, we're the kids. You're going to take the money from your great nieces and nephews? They don't need it, but if they want the egg so bad, I'll give it to them and keep the money. At this time, my mother was livid, as well as hosting aunt and sister. Mum turns to my dad. You need to get your sister. EA, give back the money, please. Why should I? You asked if anyone would like to join in the Easter egg hunt, they can. No, he said if any of the kids would like to participate, they can. Like we said before, that egg was not for you, and you claim yourself to be a child of God, yet you would steal from children? You should be ashamed. After that, we realized she wasn't going to give the money, and just ignored us by turning and continuing to talk to the lady she was talking to before. Everyone had left the room except for me, to which I soon followed, but not without giving her a dirty glance first. The rest of the family soon left her in the house with the woman, all gathering around the grilling area to share their disbelief. I soon learned this wasn't the first time she had done something like this, as she has nickel and dimed people before, even charging my grandfather, rest in peace, who was very old and very sick at the time, for a plate of food after he wasn't able to get food for himself all day, especially after all he had done for her prior to his health deteriorating. Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.